Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to pin my video here so you don't need to worry. Okay, so like I said, we're going to discuss the program. We're going to talk a little bit about your questions of where ECT is housed or questions about application. And then because this is a special spring into STEAM event, we're also going to share some free activity starters and ideas, resources made by our current students for engaging young kids in engineering. That's the theme for April. So hello, my name is Amanda Strawhacker. I earned my PhD at the DevTech Research Group, which you'll learn is very closely affiliated with the Early Childhood Technology Program. I'm currently the Associate Director of the program. I'm also the instructor for 2 of our 3 classes. And my personal background is in designing technologies for young children. I've worked on a number of tools and maker spaces, and you learn all about those at ECT, as well as several pedagogy-based and evidence-based curricula and interventions for all of those tools. So ECT and tech for children is very close to my heart. I'm very excited to speak with you all today. We are housed at Tufts University. If you are not familiar with Tufts, it's one of the leading universities in the nation of the United States for integrating research and practice in scholarly excellence. So I will now talk a little bit about the Elliot Pearson department within Tufts University. We are one of the leading departments in the US and the world for serving children, youth, and families through research, practice, and teaching. We're really committed to integrating what we know from evidence, from research, from theory, with what we actually do in child's learning spaces, in schools, at home. And all of this is rooted in the philosophy of our department that was started as one of the first early childhood teacher preparation programs in around the turn of the century. I believe it was the 1920s. And it was founded right here in Boston. It's been one of the longest standing teacher prep programs in existence. And actually the school that was also started at the same time lives on today within our department at Elliot Pearson. So should you decide to matriculate at ECT, you would actually be you would be invited to campus to work with the children at that school. And I'll talk more about the Elliot Pearson Children's School and the amazing opportunity that we have to work with them. The Elliot Pearson department is a full-fledged child study and human development department. We offer degrees at the undergraduate, master's, and doctorate level, as well as this program, which is a graduate certificate. So it's not a degree granting program, but it is a graduate certificate and graduate credit granting program. And I can talk more about the distinction there. The program itself is headed by the chair of our department, Professor Marina Umashi-Bears. And all of the work that we do at ECT, I think I just mentioned the DevTech Research Group, we're rooted in the philosophy, the pedagogy, and the evidence that comes out of DevTech. So I'll talk more about DevTech later on, but basically DevTech is a research lab where all of these tools and pedagogies are designed. And when we get to a point in our research that we feel really confident about the research that's coming out and the statements that we can stand behind, we funnel all of the best parts of that research into our practice-based work at ECT. So it's really extremely evidence-based. You can even talk to the researchers in your courses about how they arrived at the conclusions they reached and how they designed the tools that we did. So it's pretty unique in that way. The program at ECT is 1 year. So you have 2 semesters, that's the fall and the spring, that are online and follow the academic calendar at Tufts. There's also a 1-week in-person residency. Now, obviously that's adapted a little bit to accommodate COVID situations, but since everyone here would be looking to matriculate for the 2021 to 22 school year, we're predicting that we'll be back in person by that point. So I will talk to you about how we host the regular in-person residency. At the end of the program, you'll learn how to introduce technology, engineering, robotics, coding in a developmentally appropriate and playful way for early childhood, pre-kindergarten through 2nd grade. So all of the research at DevTech focuses on that about 4 to 9-year-old age range. But we do have students who work with older or younger age ranges. Many of our pedagogies work for a range of ages, but all of the evidence points to, all of the research that we conducted was with that young child, pre-K through second grade range. So that's what we stand behind, that's what we advertise, and that's what we can guarantee you will learn in the program. So we have an international group of people on the call today. I want to inform you that you're not the only international students who have ever applied to ECT. Currently, we have students in Singapore, we have students in Portugal. In the 5 years of our programs, we've had students from almost every continent except Antarctica. So it really is a very international program. And partly that's because of the way that we organize coursework, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Now, I had someone else on the call already mention that they don't really do as much yet with STEAM or with tech in early childhood. So if you're that kind of student, then I actually want to share this testimonial from one of our prior students. She also, she identified as not a tech person. That was how she described herself, and felt that after the coursework at ECT, she understood technology for early childhood, not just as a tool for tech or computer science, but as a tool for creativity, for imagination, and for providing alternate modalities of learning for both students and for herself as an adult. So we really do take the view that technology is a tool to get at the same kinds of transformative learning we always have known children need to engage in to be healthy, well-rounded citizens. So we hope that that philosophy comes through. So I mentioned the online learning model at ECT. So we have very, very small and highly interactive classes. Our faculty members, if I do say so myself, we're available to you almost 24/7, and we are really we try to react quickly on email. We check our Canvas portal. That's where you complete your assignments and get your coursework handed out to you. We check that almost daily. We're very passionate about this coursework, and we enjoy it. So we're here for you. And someone else also mentioned hands-on earlier. We do a lot of hands-on work in the ECT program. You will definitely get down on the ground, start playing with tech right away. We'll talk about it in a moment, but you actually receive a Kibo robotics kit as part of your tuition so that you have a tool to work with to complete your assignments. So you'll get very, very hands-on with the Kibo robot, as well as some of the softwares and apps that we'll learn about throughout the course. Finally, you will receive Tufts graduate credit for each of these courses. So it's 3 credits per course. And by the end of the program, you will have received 9 graduate credits from Tufts University. So we could talk about how, for example, if you work in public school, that might help you get closer to a pay step. If you are working to earn a degree or transfer credits towards a degree, we are an accredited university and can talk about those options. But that is what you'll get at ECT, is 9 graduate credits from Tufts. So before I dive right into sharing just a little bit about each of the courses, I wanted to take a brief pause and ask if there are any questions. You can put that in the chat, or just remember we're recording, but if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question or share your video, you're welcome to do that as well. So I'm just going to check the chat. Any questions so far? Peeking to see if anyone's raising their hand. Okay, give me a thumbs up if we're ready. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and assume we're ready to move on to the next part. So this would be your schedule if you matriculated at ECT. You would start in the fall for a 1-semester course on online seminar on technological tools for playful learning. So I'll talk more about each course in a moment, but then in the spring, after learning about tools, you would dive right into designing educational and technological environments for children. So going from individual tools to now a whole environment, the constellation of tools that children might explore in a learning setting and how to arrange that. And then by the summer, you'll be ready for a 1-week intensive technology summit, or sometimes we call it the ECT Residency. And that has a very different flavor than the other 2 classes. So I'll talk briefly about that as well. In the fall course for technological tools for playful learning, This is where we get really hands-on with the Kibo Robot, with the Scratch Junior programming app, with a range of tools and materials that are available at our early childhood makerspace at Tufts that we'll also share videos with for you. And any tools that you have at your disposal, you're welcome to incorporate into your coursework. This course was designed to help you get comfortable with developing activities, writing curricula, and understanding theory and pedagogy of the frameworks that you might use when introducing technology to your classroom or your learning setting, museum, backyard, wherever it is you use technology with children. Now, the Tech Tools course and the final project are designed to be very adaptive for what you need to get out of it. So if you know you're coming into the program and you're already in another graduate program and you need a final assignment that addresses certain theories from your program, but also helps you teach technology to children, we can work with you to come up with a program that makes sense for you for your individual final project. A number of teachers use this to write ready-to-run curricula for their own setting or for a range of teachers at their classroom if their district has funded them to come. Museums sometimes use this to plan exhibit spaces. So it really can be what you want it to be to get the best out of your education. I do see a quick question popping in. So Nilu is asking, do we need an iPad to run Scratch Junior? So we actually have availability of official and unofficial means to use Scratch Junior. So you could also use a Chromebook. There's actually an unofficial plugin that I personally have used, and I think it gives you a lot of the flavor, if not all of the functionality of Scratch Junior that you can just download on any device from a web browser, and a number of Android devices as well can work. And we're welcoming Abdullah. Hello, Abdullah, welcome. We're just at the point of the discussion where we're talking about the courses at ECT, and then we're gonna get later into those free STEAM activities from our current students. So after Tech Tools, after you spend a lot of time getting comfortable with a variety of softwares and the Kibo Robot that you'll receive as part of the program, we'll start thinking about designing educational and technological environments in the spring. So this is another full semester course. And I should say the fall and spring courses, those both are asynchronous, meaning no live meetings. You complete on your own time. And I have some slides about how that works. So for the environments course, we think about how to design an entire room or an entire museum exhibit or a makerspace, or a playroom, or an outdoor space to engage children in STEAM, technology, and coding in developmentally appropriate ways. So similar to the first course, if you have an idea of how you want this course to result for you, then we're very flexible to talk about that for the final project. But throughout the semester, you will explore all of the range of spaces where children might encounter technology, both very traditional and very modern and novel and innovative, and get inspired to think about how you might redesign a current space where you work, live, or play with children. Just quickly checking. So Abdullah, I want to actually address your question at the end. There's a longer answer, and actually we have a whole webinar dedicated to how you can seek funding for that kind of scholarship or travel funding, but we do not currently offer it. We do have an application promotion that I'm happy to share with you, but like I said, we are running a webinar where you can learn a lot more information about that on May 5th, and I will email everyone who is attending today with the registration link for that if you're interested. So the residency. By the time you get to the summer after that one-year experience with online learning at ECT, you'll be pretty prepared, I think, and ready to sort of culminate all of your studies into some activities with young children live. So we actually at Elliot Pearson are fortunate to have a laboratory school right on campus. What that means is there's an early childhood center just built right into our department. It follows all the same rules and regulations and learning standards as every other school in the public school districts around our area, but the school and the teachers work directly with Tufts University, which means that we are able to come in and work with those teachers, learn with their children, and you in the residency will actually develop and lead your own STEAM activity or experience for these kids as a way to sort of put into practice everything you've been learning and also get supervised teaching experience. So you'll have myself and the other instructors, Dr. Marina Bears, who is the program director, All of us will be present to see how you teach, to offer feedback, and you'll be able to also meet your cohort that you've been working with all year online and have conversations with an amazing community of educators, researchers, caregivers. It really, I have to say, we attract some really impressive and wonderful students. So it's a wonderful opportunity to meet your cohort in person. There are also a number of networking events that occur that week. So we will spend time hearing from professionals in the field of ed tech in industry settings or academic or school-based informal museum settings. You'll get a chance to meet a number of alumni from the ECT program, as well as researchers from the DevTech Research Group and folks beyond our network, just anyone in the EdTech realm. We try really hard to really make a strong program for you so that you see what kind of available options you have now that you have an ECT certificate, and you make connections and you have a network of folks that you can reach out to now that you've completed your program. So typically this 1-week residency, it does take place in Boston, and it takes place the week of July 15th, that middle week. So although we might not have the dates yet for 2022, I can assure you it'll probably be that same week of July 15th. Typically it's a Monday through a Friday, a full day residency. And there are also, I should say, there are opportunities sprinkled in to explore the Boston area. Maybe you want to check out a museum or meet with someone else at Tufts University. So we have historically had some very successful times orchestrating that. And it's a really special and fun gathering. So like I mentioned, we expect this will be held in person by 2022. But if you have questions about how we have adapted to a virtual environment for that course, I'm happy to answer that. We're doing that this year. We did it last year. It's not the intention for the program, but if need be, we do have a virtual option that we potentially could run if that's required by the university and by state and local legislature. So you might be wondering what online learning would mean or how that would jive with your schedule. So I just wanted to have a few pictures here to sort of illustrate what it would look like and feel like to be a student at ECT. We use Canvas. If you're already familiar, then that's great. You might already know a little bit about the platform. If you're not familiar with Canvas, it's basically a private website where you would have your own login and password. And as soon as you log in, you'll see your course that's available to you. So for example, this is actually the last year's spring homepage. You can see there's a description of the course. There's also a video welcome. We do a lot of instruction through video. We try to keep them very brief because we know you're busy, but it's a lot of viewing type lectures. And then the activities that you have are a little bit more hands-on, as you'll see. So we organize the courses week by week, and these actually will release for you so you're not overwhelmed with a whole semester at once. They'll release for you typically by Friday evening, and then you'll have an entire week to complete the readings. Often you'll have 2 weeks to complete any activities, and we're very, very flexible on deadlines because we know everyone is sort of juggling a lot, especially this year. But you can always reach out to an instructor and request an extension. But everything is laid out for you. You'll have your readings and your resources to watch for the week. We also have activities and hands-on prompts that you can complete and then reflect on. And we have some optional and sometimes required discussion posts for you to converse with your classmates. Just quickly checking. So Nilo is asking, will we have the opportunity to collaborate with other students during spring and fall? Yes, in fact, those activities and discussions typically result in a class-wide discussion. And although it does happen online, you can post videos of your reflection, you can type your reflection. We do offer optional live meetings throughout the spring and fall, but typically we save most of those live meeting requirements for the summer. So in the spring and fall, it'll look more like, and these people really do invest time in their responses. So it's almost like you have a whole journal article from a friend to read by the time you're ready to post your own reflection. And actually, these are some of the examples of posts you might read or post yourself. So these are from student-led discussions. Many of these were actually from an optional discussion thread, but it just was such a an inspirational topic that people really wanted to share what they were doing at home. As you can see, there's a lot of hands-on work that happens. These are all examples of projects that people were submitting that we requested you complete with whatever materials you have, and we gave certain prompts for learning. And this was the result of what people shared, either from their individual home settings, or you can see in the bottom right, some folks had access to classroom spaces at that time or to learning spaces. So they actually shared how children participated in their activity. So as you can see, we really will ask you to try out, to get messy, get playful with all of these tools and strategies that we're introducing, because as you know, so much of learning is experiencing, trying it out, playing it for ourselves. So we really do emphasize that as a significant portion of what your homework would be. And another testimonial, if you don't want to take my word for it, this was a teacher, or actually a technology director for a learning space in Michigan. And she talked about how she found the program, we're not going to lie, it's a Tufts graduate course. It is challenging. You do need to devote about, I would say, 10 hours a week just to making sure you're staying on top of everything. But she found it extremely helpful. She found the feedback from instructors helpful. And in the environments course, she's talking about the environments course here, she used her research and her final project to actually write a grant proposal, and she earned grant funding to start up her own makerspace in her learning setting. So that's just one example of how the program can really be used in whatever way you need it so that you can achieve your professional and career goals and not have to spread yourself so thin. You can sort of concentrate your work in the program to overlap directly with what you're trying to do outside of school. And finally, what will you leave with? So by the time you graduate the program, you would leave with the knowledge of theory and practice related to working in early childhood and technology settings. You would have in-depth experience, hands-on experience with coding, engineering, and robotics for young children. You'll have experience writing technology and engineering curricula for young children, or if you don't need to learn how to write curricula, you'll learn about it, but you could also target that as more activity starters or even outreach to families about engaging with tech and engineering. And finally, you'll have that supervised experience teaching with technology to young children. So I mentioned again, this happens at Tufts, so you'll get experience seeing our early childhood makerspace and playing with all of the tools that you've learned about all year. You'll work in the Elliot Pearson Children's School, and you'll meet an entire network of folks that you'll have as contacts after the program to build and develop your presence as a professional in this field. And finally, I just want to emphasize, I agree with this statement completely. Someone who was a director of a university children's center found that the cohort, the peers that you make, the Alumni Association, everything that happens around the community at ECT was extremely powerful for her. She found them a powerful group of educators and early childhood advocates. And it really is an international professional learning community that stays, we think, with you beyond the program. And we're just very, very proud of all of our alums, and we hope that you would like to join that community. So this is probably the question on the top of everyone's mind. How much does the program cost? So we actually, like I mentioned, on May 5th, we have a dedicated workshop just to thinking about this. But currently our tuition is $1,746 per course, or about $5,238 for all 3 courses. I like to tell people estimate closer to $5,400 or $5,500 after thinking about your books, or if you wanted to get any kits aside from the one that we provide to you. It's not required at all by any means, but people find that they fall in love with a kit, and it's, you know, it's $100 on Amazon or $40 on Amazon. You might want to save a little money for that too. You might be surprised to learn that this is one of the best valued programs at Tufts. So if you're just thinking of how to get graduate credit, there are, this is one of the better ways you could do it to get Tufts University credit. And applications for the fall are due August 1st. So it's rolling, which means if you submitted today, we would get back to you within a couple weeks. We actually have a promotion we're running right now, where if you apply before June 1st, you would get your application fee waived. So that's an $85 US value. We would just completely waive that if you complete and submit your application by June 1st. You don't need to complete GREs to apply to the program, and anything more you want to learn about this, about how to apply or what you need to know, I suggest you visit go.tufts.edu/ECT. And I know my personal recommendation, if you're even curious, if you don't know yet, if you want to apply, but you want to learn more, I always tell people the best way, the absolute best way to stay in touch with us, to make sure that we have you in our system and we can contact you if you have questions, is to just start an application. It's free to start one. And if you finish it by June 1st, it's even free to apply. And then you could make the decision before you matriculate. There is a $100 matriculation fee as well. Those are all of the application and enrollment fees that I'm aware of. So you could save a little money, and you could also learn a little bit just by starting an application now, maybe even finishing it now, and then deciding later whether you want to actually join. So again, if you're curious about what goes into that application, you would need to submit your undergraduate transcripts. If you have graduate transcripts and you list those on your application, you'll need to submit those too, but we really, really need the undergraduate transcript, an official transcript from your undergrad university. You'll need a letter of recommendation from someone who knows you and understands your commitment or your curiosity about STEM in early childhood. You'll need 2 essays, and these really can be a couple paragraphs, not a lengthy 5-paragraph essay, but just a few lines about you, where you are in your professional journey, what you do with children, or maybe what you do with technology, why grad school, why now, and then a second article essay that's more targeted why ECT could help you. And here we're just looking to see that we're a good fit, that we can actually help you achieve your professional aims, that you have questions that we might be able to answer. So that one is more about why you're curious about STEAM or tech for young children. And if you have no experience at all, that's also completely fine. That's a really logical reason to want to take a program like this. And finally, for international applicants, you might be required to submit a TOEFL score. That's the test of English foreign language fluency. You might also instead submit, if you have taken a degree at an English speaking university, you could submit that in place of your TOEFL scores and have those waived. But that is something I like to warn people who are applying from abroad. Tufts University, not the program, Tufts University requires some evidence that your English language fluency won't leave you stranded when we are teaching and writing and communicating in English. So I have now, we're at actually just about the half-hour mark. I'm going to transition to the Spring into STEAM, Spring into STEM activities that we have planned for you. And while I do that, I'm going to let you guys go ahead and share any questions that you might have in the chat, or unmute yourself again if you prefer, and let us know what you have questions about. Okay, so it looks like folks are just eager to see these activities. I don't blame you. Okay, let's see, we might have one. Okay, great. Okay, so Abdullah is raising his hand. Abdullah, do you want to, we are recording, so I'm just reminding you, if you don't want to be recorded, don't take your video off, but do you want to just unmute yourself and ask your question?
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to introduce you myself before asking the question. My full name is Abdullah Qamar, and currently I am from Pakistan, Islamabad. I am an educator by profession, and I am teaching ICT from last 4 years. By academic, if you talk about my academic journey, so I done my MPhil in computer sciences. Apart from this, in Pakistan, there is a short 1.5 semester course that is bachelor's in education. So I completed that as well. Right now, my core interest is to proceed for the PhD. in
Oh,
some
okay.
internationally good reputed university. My background is from the technology, so I would like to progress in the field of STEM. That's why I am attending this webinar or this session. Basically, I think my question is out of the box. I already put in the chat. I am more interested in the PhD program in the same early child technology perspective. But as I go through the website, in the website, they talk about the PhD in safe child study and human development. So my first question is this same? The program offer on the website is child study and human development. Second, as you share the fee related thing, so as you guys from the I am in the underdevelopment country and I am managing my all expenses by my own. And when I convert the dollar fee into my Pakistani rupees, too much, you can say financially, I am unable to afford this too much fee. I am looking for some fellowship, some scholarship opportunity, or either I can, because I have some international certification as well in STEM from stem.org. So I can come in an institute and I can serve myself as a teacher, or in the return, I can want to learn and proceed my PhD. So hopefully you get my, you can say, question, what I am looking for.
Yeah, so there was a lot of questions in one,
Yeah,
but
thank
I
you.
think I can follow. So if you're curious about the PhD program at Elliot Pearson, it is distinct from the ECT program. However, I don't believe the PhD is I'm not sure, but I don't believe it's currently offering an online version. I would recommend you check out directly with the Elliot Pearson department, and I'm happy to put you in touch via email after this webinar. But I do know that all of our coursework at ECT does transfer. So you could apply all of your credits directly to your PhD, or at least the spring and the fall definitely do. I don't know if anyone's ever tried with the summer residency yet, but I imagine it would be successful or earn you partial transfer credit. Regarding your suggestion about coming to teach with us, I wish we could accept that. At this time, ECT is not hiring or expanding. However, if you were to matriculate as a PhD student, perhaps you could join as a teaching assistant or collaborate with ECT and earn graduate credit that way. But again, that would be a conversation to occur after you apply and matriculate and get accepted as a doctoral student with Elliot Pearson. So it sounds like you have a lot of really cool ideas about how you want to expand your graduate journey and trajectory. I suggest we take further questions offline about your specific path. But if anyone has any other questions about specifically ECT before we dive in, okay, thank you, Abdullah, for sharing your email. Okay, and Nilu, I see a question from you. So about that residency, do you live on campus? Do you commute? What happens there? So I happen to know, because you mentioned earlier that you are local in the Boston area, you would be more than welcome to commute every day from your actual residence and drive into Boston. The way that we typically organize it is we do a block hotel rate at a local hotel. And I'm actually in collaboration with Tufts to see if we can offer on-campus housing. We couldn't the last year or two because they were using the housing for a conference and then subsequently for hospital bed, rollout housing for people with who needed space for COVID treatment. Obviously, it didn't end up mattering because we ended up transitioning to virtual anyway. But Tufts University does offer, if you're curious about staying on campus as an option, they do have limited, much cheaper housing available, although we usually negotiate a pretty good rate with the hotel as well. So we would share any information about the residency that you would need to know by January or February at the latest. And I'm just going to level with you guys. It's pretty much pay your own way to get to campus, to stay on campus. And then once you get there, we'll try to take care of you as much as we can and feed you and give you access to anything that we have access to at Tufts. But that is the one thing, we can't afford all of these international flights from everywhere and things like that. We're sort of the lean startup program at Tufts. So we negotiated as much as we can to get that discounted rate for your grad credits and this application promotion that I mentioned. But aside from that, local educators might be at an advantage because you don't need to pay for that lodging through that week. So I hope that that clarifies. And again, if you're curious about funding ideas or really how you can fund your own way, and maybe ECT can assist with a letter of support or something like that, I encourage you to stay tuned for that May 5th webinar. We'll be sharing information about how educators or anyone who's seeking grad funding can apply for their own funding, how ECT can offer, like I mentioned, letters of support, or if you apply early with that application promotion, you can apply for free, and then we can even let you know your decision, so that when you're writing those grants, you might even be able to say, I'm already accepted, but I can't attend without this funding. Here is all of the compelling reasons why you should fund me. So we'll have a whole conversation about the fun ways that you could self-fund. And ECT has been seeking funding actually for scholarships all year. And unfortunately, it's just very limited out there for programs to apply to. But we've found so much for individuals to apply to. We want to share it with you. So stay tuned for that on May 5th. And if there are there any more questions before I just share some of those Spring into STEAM activities and get you excited about what you could make at ECT? All right, it looks like we're ready to move ahead. So for this portion, we're just going to dive right in. So if you haven't been keeping up, we have offered from February and again into May, all spring, free workshops, free resources for bringing, and we're thinking mainly about people in lockdown or remote or hybrid learning settings, how you can bring STEM or STEAM into your setting and work with young kids, doing some of the activities that we've been learning about all year at ECT. So this month is April. Our theme is Build a Dream Engineering, and we're going to share with you ideas of how students have used engineering to inspire children's creativity and get them thinking about their creative expression that you don't often think about as a part of engineering, but is really integral to that design process. So speaking of design process, what exactly are we teaching when we're introducing children to the engineering design process? So we actually explicitly use this as an anchor chart when we teach with kids. We talk at ECT about the design process as a learning model, a learning process. And the reason that we introduce it is not that we think all kids should be designers or engineers, but that we think it's a really powerful metaphor for all kinds of design that happens around children's lives. The process, if you're not familiar with engineering, starts with asking a question. You might then brainstorm or imagine a solution to that question. Sometimes the question is, how do I build a bridge across to a body of water? Or it might be, I'll share some other examples of engineering prompts, but it might be, how do I create a robot that dances to express my cultural connection? Or how do I code a story or a greeting card to send to my grandma who's in the hospital? There's so many personally meaningful directions that could inspire an engineering project. So once you have your question, you've thought a little bit about what you want your outcome to be, we always work with children on creating a plan first, a blueprint, thinking about sketching out your idea, anything to sort of inspire a little bit of metacognition or thinking about their own thinking. That's a really important learning outcome for kids at this age, because so quickly they dive right into tinkering, and there's a lot you can learn from that. But there's also a lot you can learn from sort of stepping back and reflecting and understanding the goal of your design and iterating on some of your purpose for it. So we always spend a lot of time in the create stage. If you're following along with this little picture over here, after you have your plan, you might start building a prototype, as this girl is doing in the picture right here. And then we spend a lot of time on testing and improving our design. We always say, if you got something right the first time you tried to build it, you didn't try hard enough, or you didn't set yourself a hard enough goal, because part of engineering is working towards the best possible outcome that you can find. So we want to make sure we refine, we iterate, we spend time really reflecting and carefully critiquing our designs so that we can improve them over time. And of course, we spend a lot of time in the share phase as well. So whether you're sharing a prototype iteration that totally failed, or you're sharing a final version of your project that you feel really proud of, we spend so much time thinking about the best ways to help children feel confident presenting and talking about their work, inviting family members or school communities or classmates to think with them about that share process. Should it be a museum style experience? Should it be a formal presentation? Should it be a play? So all of these factors play in when we start thinking about engineering with young kids. And you don't need to have a whole group or a whole museum to think about the engineering design process. You can do this at home with your own kids or with kids in your life or your neighborhood. We present this as the infinity symbol, as a forever loop. Sometimes we tell the kids, they funnily enough recognize, a lot of them recognize this symbol, but we used to show it as a circle, and we found that kids felt like you had to do a step-by-step process and work around it just once and just in the same way. So now we present this image sort of as an infinity symbol to sort of signify design never stops. It stops when you choose, but there are so many ways that you can improve things. You know, iPhones, for example, did you ever wonder why there are so many numbers after those iPhones? It's because there were so many different versions, and even those professional engineers had to improve on their work. So we really emphasize that you can start anywhere in this process and jump around and continue, but all of these steps are really important to engineering. So in the examples I'm about to share with you, think in the back of your mind about that activity or that process. And let's dive right in with some Storybook inspired engineering. This is actually from one of our environments activities that we ran in the course this year. If you want more ideas about Storybook inspired engineering, I encourage you to check out the Novel Engineering website. I don't actually know if I have the website pasted, but Novel Engineering is something, it's a form of engineering that was sort of, that term was coined also at Tufts at a different group for older children, but we use it in ECT. Basically, we encourage kids to read a book, any book, their favorite book, or a book you've read together for a long time, and or even a movie. This would work with movies or TV shows. And think about a challenge that the characters are facing in the plot of that story. So in this book, a student actually made this last month. She chose Mo Willems' Let's Go for a Drive. It's about Piggy and Elephant dreaming about where they would go on a drive in the country or drive out in the world together, and how fun it would be. It's actually a favorite. Mo Willems is a favorite author of the kids that we work with. But a problem that Elephant and Piggy face in the story is that they don't have a car. So it's all imaginary and speculative, which is fun too. But this student decided she wanted to make them a car. That was her engineering design challenge that she set for herself. And this challenge was actually about using found materials, quote unquote junk mail, or as some students liked to call it, opportunity mail. We encouraged them to find materials around the house and just try to make whatever they could to solve their problem. And this student decided to make a recyclable car. And I thought it was actually pretty creative how she ended up incorporating toothpicks to be her axles and bottle caps for the wheels. She subsequently went on and tried this activity with her young kids at home, and they came up with even more creative ways of making a car that would navigate a track. So it was a really creative way to create a real solution for her characters. And what's great about these activities is they're rooted in stories, which is one of the best ways to engage children in a thought-based task. Stories are so powerful for helping young kids understand and reflect about ideas that might be a little beyond comprehension if you're just explaining it. So they get really invested in these projects and in these stories because they're thinking about use case and the user, the main character of the story, when they're building their design. So you also get a little bit of perspective taking, and that planning stage becomes really rich because they can draw on their character and their story to inform the needs of their project. So it really does get at user-based engineering, which a lot of people don't learn about until college. It gets at literacy, it gets at creative design, and of course it gets at engineering. This is another, it actually wasn't inspired by this story. I just happened to, my original background was in literacy training for children. So I always love to have a picture book for every occasion. So this was a project where a student wanted to create a dream home for herself. This is an activity we engage kids with a lot in our camps that we run at DevTech. So she chose to make an entirely cardboard home. So far, there's nothing technological about these pieces that I'm showing you, except that this home, she ended up, she didn't do it, but she came up with a whole design schematic for how she would integrate circuitry. And I have some ideas for you if you're curious about circuits for this age group. But you can see she got really detailed with her home and used this book, If I Built a House by Chris Van Dusen, to help navigate the design process. So this is a great picture book if you're just introducing the design process to young children. The character in the story walks through every step of engineering and has examples of blueprints and examples of iteration. And it's a really beautiful story anyway about this really fantastical home that he's designed. And it's a great jumping off point for inspiring kids to think about their own fantastical home or bedroom or backyard space. I mean, who doesn't love to dream about that kind of thing? And challenge them to try to make a prototype, try to bring it to life. That's one step closer to achieving your dream, is seeing it in the real world. So this is just another example of how you might engage kids in an engineering design challenge. Now, if you're curious about orchestrating things with technology, this on the right-hand side is very similar, is a model home that was created by our entire cohort at the in-person residency in 2019. All of these images were from a happy city that we developed in our makerspace. If you've ever visited the New York Hall of Science, you might be familiar with the happy city concept. Basically, they started this idea, and I think it's just so beautiful. I love to share it. They invite as an exhibit anyone who comes into the museum to contribute something. It can be something handmade in clay, something constructed with their construction tools that they have available, something you draw, but you contribute something to a three-dimensional model of a city that you think would make the residents happy. So you can imagine when kids start working on this, there are tons and tons of ice cream shops and lots of pools and parks, and who wouldn't be happy in an environment like that? These folks in our program made a happy city in our makerspace at Tufts for young kids. So on the left, they decided to play with simple machines. We have a building construction kit that I can share the name of with you that really engages kids in thinking about pulleys and levers. And those sort of simple machines are kind of an engineering concept that aren't taught often until middle or high school, even though kids might explore them at a very foundational way before that. But this kit really brings it out to the front and highlights things like nuts and bolts and how they connect together, why you connect them, and how you can use them to make things like joints. And in this case, an elevator, with a functional elevator for their tower that's named after all of the people who created it. In the middle, we have they constructed, again, another low-tech design, but they actually, you can't see it because we didn't have a good photo of it, but they constructed a light that shone underneath so that it would sort of be a terrarium, planetarium type of experience. And then on the right, I was mentioning another model home. I don't believe it's currently available on the market anymore, but they were using a kit called Ruminate that theoretically is supposed to come back someday, but it used simple battery operated connection points so that you could make functional lights, spinning fans, things like that in a doll-sized model home. So they actually, I think this door, for example, would really open and close. They hooked up some gears so that you could have, I don't remember exactly why they used the gears, but maybe there was a walkway somewhere. But even if you don't use the kit Ruminate, you could actually get started with robotics kits for young kids. So obviously Kibo, the one that you'll get as a student at ECT, but I know that Lego We Do and Lego Boost also get at some of those technological construction kits. And on the next page, I think I even have some examples of STEAM tools that you could explore. So what you saw on the previous slide, the large building kit that lets you get at simple machines, this is called Rigamajig. It's quite expensive, I'm not gonna lie to you. We actually got it donated by the artist who created Rigamajig because she heard about our makerspace. But they may have Rigamajig Junior now. I think they had at-home kits that they were trying to market. So it's just an example of a kit that we really enjoy, that obviously the kids really love. This is from our makerspace to help explore simple machines, and they can build whatever. I mean, we've seen kids build like life-size dinosaurs with this kit. It's really incredible what they can do with it. On the right, this is actually another research project from Carnegie Mellon University in the US, the Children's Innovation Project. The only website they have is ciplearningstore.com, but you could learn about the research behind it at the Create Lab website from Carnegie Mellon. These are basically little connection points for a circuit set, and they thought really hard about how young kids might approach this kit. So these alligator clips that you would use to connect the parts, as a child did in our makerspace to make this ice melting machine. They have oversized handles for small fingers, and the light bulb is designed so that it's really durable, but also shows clearly how if you don't connect both sides, it's not going to light up. Another kit you might have heard about that's very similar to this one, but a little less tactile and a little more rigid in the placement of everything, is the Snap Circuits Junior kit. And I didn't have any pictures of that, but I will put it into the chat. Snap Circuits Junior is a really great, almost comes like a board game, and it's an oversized breadboard. So what that means is an oversized layout map where you can plug in different parts of your circuit. And they have a whole manual and many, many parts that you can just create really simple circuits to, one, learn about how circuits work, but also make a spinning fan that pops off 30 feet into the air safely. We've played this with young children and it's not harmful. You could record a sound and have it play every time someone pushes a button. You can get really creative with the kinds of projects you make on an open-ended way, but they also have something like 20 to 30 projects to get started if you're not sure how to begin, with step-by-step instructions. So Snap Circuits Junior is a really great kit that we also use a lot in our makerspace. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Kibo Robot. I didn't get too deep into Kibo today, but it's a screen-free, tangible robot kit that we've used with thousands of children all over the world. It's a really successful company, and we're really fortunate that it was developed at DevTech, so we can partner with them and offer it as part of your tuition. You don't have to pay extra for it. It just gets shipped to your door. You use it throughout the whole year, and then at the end, if you finish the program, you actually keep that kit. And it comes with, I mean, Kibo can really get advanced, but you start with just simple programming blocks. There's nothing technological about them. It's, you know, just like barcodes at the library or the grocery store. The Kibo Robot scans your barcodes and it learns that one program. And you can add from there motors, spinning turntables on top, as this student did. This is actually a voice recorder block. There are sensors, so kids can get started thinking about distance and light sensors. There are light bulbs, there are sound sensors, and there are conditional statements. I mean, we get really, you start to learn things that I didn't learn about computer science until college, in kindergarten. And, you know, the evidence is there that it's really successful for kids and designed in a way that's very adaptable and approachable for that age group. So if they can do it, I guarantee you can do it. And by the end of the ECT program, you will be an expert in coding with Kibo. But I just wanted to share that that's another great kit for engineering, because there's a lot of building components that come with the robot, or you can build on, as you can see, with Lego or craft material, and sort of create a more organic building experience for the child as well. So I hope you enjoyed those free activity starters. I'm happy to share the recording of this event with you afterwards so you can remember them. If you have any questions or want to join us for our next event, where we'll be talking about messy making and thinking about things like conductive Play-Doh, you're welcome to join us on May 12th. I mentioned already that there's an event happening on May 5th that we are getting up on our website ASAP, and I'll email you the registration link. And I also, oops, this is not what I meant to do. What happened to my screen? Oops, sorry for the technical difficulties. See, it happens to everyone. Okay, here we go. I also wanted to share on the 19th, this is not really an ECT application information thing. This is just, we're running a webinar if you're at all curious about the impact of COVID and how, after coming out of this year of pandemic, how young kids might be experiencing technology and STEAM, what industry and education and higher ed is thinking about or predicting for the future of how kids might be exploring screen time or robots, or what technology holds for the future. I encourage you to join us on April 19th. It's at 6 p.m. Eastern for a panel discussion with an ECT instructor, a former student and alum who works at KinderLab and is actually an industry professional who can talk to that aspect of this question. And Angela Dimick is a current student who's also an administrator for Norfolk Public Schools. So very different perspectives on this question of how technology is going to change for children's lives in the coming years. So if you're curious about that, I encourage you to visit bit.ly with /learn with ECT. I'll put that in the chat as well. And everything else, I've already put it into the chat, but that go.tufts.edu/ECT website that is right here, that's where you can find all of this information, as well as how to apply. Any questions that you might have probably are answered there. And I hope that you stay in touch, and feel free to reach out to me via email, or I'll stay on for another few minutes if you have questions. So I know we're right at the top of the hour. I'll leave this up for one more second if you want to take a screenshot. But thank you guys so much. If you have to duck out, don't feel bad. But if you have more questions or want to just stay on, I'm happy to speak with you. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That's very informative. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much, guys.